It started like a traffic accident until it didn't. Two identical twin sisters step into fast-moving motorway traffic in the UK. Cameras roll. Cops panic. One is hit, stands up, and runs again. The footage? Absolutely chilling. Hours later, one of them brutally murders a complete stranger without warning. What triggered this rampage? Drugs? Mental illness? Or something far more disturbing? The case spiraled into conspiracy theories, mind control rumors, and claims of shared psychosis so twisted, some still believe the women were possessed. This wasn't just caught on tape, this unfolded in real time. And what happened next left even investigators speechless. It was a normal day on one of England's busiest motorways, the M6. Cars sped by. Commuters focused on the road, unaware that something horrifying was about to unfold. Two women stood at the edge of the median, identical, silent, calm, without warning. They walked directly into oncoming traffic, no hesitation, no fear, just movement. What followed was pure chaos, horns blaring, tires screeching, cars swerving. One woman was struck by a car and thrown violently into the air. She landed hard, unmoving, but then, to everyone's shock, she stood up and ran again. Police arrived, stunned by what they were witnessing. This wasn't a suicide attempt. This wasn't confusion. It was something else. Something darker. The scene was being filmed live by a BBC documentary crew following motorway officers. So what millions would later see, the officers already witnessed firsthand. Two identical women, dressed alike, repeatedly charging into traffic like they didn't feel pain, like they didn't care if they lived or died. But here's where it turns, because this isn't just a story about a traffic incident. This is about what came next, because just hours after that motorway madness, one of the twins, now calm, patched up, and released by authorities, walked into a small village. She approached a stranger, a kind man, a good man, and without provocation, she stabbed him to death. No warning, no words, just a sudden, cold attack. The murder was so senseless, so disturbing, that even seasoned officers couldn't explain it. And when questioned, she claimed she didn't remember any of it. Not the motorway, not the cops, not the blood. What happened on that road? Was it trauma? Mental illness? Or did something enter them when they stepped into the traffic? The CCTV, the eyewitnesses, and the interviews only made it stranger, and it was just the beginning. The twins were Sabina and Ursula Eriksson, Swedish-born, quiet, no history of crime or violence, no psychiatric background. According to records, they had lived ordinary lives until that day. Ursula had been visiting Sabina in Ireland, but for reasons still unclear, they left abruptly. No goodbye, no plan. They boarded a ferry to England without luggage and barely any money. CCTV later captured them at a Liverpool bus depot, pacing erratically and clutching their bags. Staff said they seemed paranoid, nervous glances, rapid whispering. When told they couldn't board a bus, they clung to each other and walked off on foot. Within hours, they were seen walking alongside the M6. When stopped by officers, they were cooperative, calm, but then, like a switch had flipped. They ran, first into traffic, then into history. After Sabina was arrested for the roadside incident, she was taken to a hospital. She laughed. She sang, then became suddenly violent, again striking a police officer and speaking in fragmented, surreal phrases. Doctors assessed her and found no evidence of drugs or alcohol. She was released within hours, and that night she would kill. The man she murdered was Glenn Hollinshead, a 54-year-old retired RAF engineer who had offered her shelter after seeing her wandering the street. He gave her food, kindness, and she stabbed him 5 times with a kitchen knife. He staggered outside, bleeding, trying to get help. But it was too late. Sabina fled, jumped off a bridge, and broke both ankles. Still, she survived, but nothing about this made sense. 2 women, no weapons, no drugs, no plan, and yet an explosion of inexplicable violence. It felt orchestrated. Was it a mental break? Shared psychosis? A fugue state? Or something stranger? Because what Sabina said next was even harder to believe. When Sabina was finally well enough to be interrogated, investigators expected answers. What they got was confusion. She claimed not to remember the stabbing. She didn't even remember her own arrest. Her voice was distant, cold, as if she were describing someone else's life. When asked why she ran into traffic, she simply replied, "They were after us." Who were they? She wouldn't say. No names, no faces. Just a repeated whisper. They followed us from Ireland. At trial, her lawyers presented a rare defense. Folie à deux, a shared psychotic disorder. That Ursula had influenced Sabina's thoughts. That Sabina had been caught in a psychological vortex triggered by her twins' delusions. But the prosecution wasn't convinced. They argued Sabina knew what she was doing, that her calm demeanor before and after the killing suggested cold calculation, not insanity. Meanwhile, doctors struggled to categorize her behavior. No trace of drugs, no severe mental health history. No diagnosis made sense. Journalists and conspiracy theorists pounced. Some claimed mind control. That the twins were part of a psychological experiment gone rogue. Others pointed to military programs. The fact that Ursula had worked at a tech firm raised suspicions in fringe communities, but none of it could be proven. What made things worse was the eerie symmetry. The way they moved together, spoke in rhythm, reacted in sync. One officer described it as watching 2 puppets on the same string. Sabina would later make cryptic remarks in court. She told the judge, "We die in threes." When asked to explain, she fell silent. When sentencing came, the court acknowledged her mental disturbance. Sabina was convicted of manslaughter due to diminished responsibility and sentenced to 5 years. She served just over half, and when released, she disappeared from public view. No interviews, no statements, nothing. Just like that, the twisted twin vanished again. After Sabina's release from prison, there was no press conference, no public apology, no televised remorse. She walked out of custody and disappeared. No job record. No forwarding address, not even a clear photo of her in the years that followed. It's as if she vanished from the map. Meanwhile, Ursula reportedly returned to the United States. Despite being the one hit hardest by traffic that day, she made a full physical recovery. But like her sister, she never gave another statement. Never acknowledged the incident again. No family members came forward. No one from Sweden, Ireland, or the UK claimed to know where they went. The silence wasn't just private. It felt intentional. Some online sleuths claimed sightings. A woman who looked like Sabina seen in a Scandinavian port. A blurry photo from Berlin, but none confirmed, and as the years passed, the case became more myth than memory. Still, threads remained: the BBC footage, the police dash cams, the haunting courtroom sketches, clips of the twins walking in perfect sync, stepping into death and walking away from it, continue to go viral. Their blank expressions, the eerie timing, the screams from police, "Stay down, don't move." It plays like a scripted horror film. But it wasn't. It was real, and the twins, they never explained any of it. Was it shared madness? A supernatural link? Government programming? The footage doesn't answer those questions. It only raises more. The Erickson case remains one of the most bizarre criminal stories ever captured on film. No one, not the police, not psychologists, not the media, has fully explained what happened. How can two sisters with no criminal background suddenly descend into chaos and violence within a matter of hours? Theories still swirl online. Some call it a textbook case of shared delusion. Others believe it's something deeper, that the twins were running from something the public will never see. Even the surviving footage leaves more confusion than clarity. The synchronized behavior, the inexplicable strength after impact, the emotionless expressions, all of it reads like something supernatural. Internet sleuths have dissected every frame, noting odd coincidences and visual glitches. Some say Ursula's reaction time was inhuman when she jumped in front of the lorry. Others point to unexplained gaps in police reports. And then there's Sabina's statement, "We die in threes." Was that a warning? A code? Has the third tragedy already happened, unnoticed? What about their families? Why has no one come forward publicly to provide context, history, or support? The Erickson twins remain an enigma. Their story became legend not because of the blood or the violence, but because of the silence, the feeling that something crucial is missing. And maybe that's why the case won't go away. Because part of us needs to believe there's an answer, even if the twins never gave one. What makes this case unforgettable isn't just the chaos on the motorway or the murder that followed. It's the complete collapse of logic. We saw it with our own eyes. The world did. It was filmed, yet even now, no explanation satisfies. Were Sabina and Ursula victims of untreated mental illness? Or did something more terrifying happen? If it was just psychosis, how did it happen to both of them simultaneously, with perfect physical coordination and identical phrases? Why did no one from their past speak out? Why were they released so quickly after such violent behavior? And what were they running from? If we take them at their word, if they were following, then who or what were they? Some believe it was a delusion shared between sisters. Others think the delusion might have been planted, and some refuse to call it a delusion at all. The truth is, we may never know. Sabina vanished. Ursula fell silent, and the man who tried to help Glenn is dead. All that remains are questions, grainy footage, cryptic phrases, a moment in time that spiraled into madness. This case didn't fade because people forgot. It faded because it defies understanding. And maybe that's what makes it so terrifying. Not the blood, not the murder, but the silence that followed. If you thought the horror ended here, you're wrong. What other dark rituals and forbidden practices are still being performed in secret? Dive deeper into the chilling world of haunted ceremonies, banned footage, and eerie folklore that refuses to stay buried. Click on the playlist to uncover terrifying recordings, lost evidence, and disturbing stories they never wanted you to see. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for weekly uploads of spine-tingling footage and dark tales that echo from the shadows. This is the Forbidden's Archive, where the hidden truth and haunting evidence come to life.